I started noticing the numbers didn't add up sometime around March. It wasn't dramatic. No big moment where everything clicked. Just small things. Discrepancies in what my boss told potential investors versus what our actual performance reports showed. He'd say, we grew 38% last quarter. I knew it was 22. He'd mention partnerships that were still in negotiation, like they were done deals. I ran operations for a commercial printing business. We handled everything from packaging design to large format displays for retail stores. 3 years I'd been there. Started as a project coordinator, worked up to operations manager. I knew every client, every contract, every deadline. When something shipped late, I fixed it. When a client threatened to leave, I kept them. My boss's name was Grayson. He owned the place, built it from nothing about 15 years ago. People respected him. He had that energy, walked into a room and everyone paid attention, told stories that made investors laugh. I admired that about him at first. But admiration fades when you realize someone's foundation is built on exaggeration. The first time I caught him in a real lie was during a call with a potential investor. I was sitting in his office going over quarterly projections. He had me on mute while he talked to someone named Joelle. Big investor, he'd told me. Someone with serious money looking to expand her portfolio. We've increased production capacity by 45%, he said into the phone. Our turnaround time is now industry leading. I looked at my laptop. We'd increased capacity by 18%, and our turnaround time was average at best. Good, but not leading. He saw me staring. After he hung up, he leaned back in his chair. You look confused. Those numbers were different than what I have. Investors want to hear confidence. You'll understand when you've been doing this longer. I was 29 years old, not some kid fresh out of school. I understood the difference between confidence and lying. But I didn't say anything. Not then. April came. Then May. He got more comfortable with it. Started inflating everything. Told people we had contracts we were only bidding on. Said our profit margins were higher than they were. I watched him promise returns that our actual business couldn't deliver. I kept thinking he'd stop, that maybe this was temporary, just trying to close a few big deals, and then he'd level out. He didn't stop. June was when it got worse. Joelle, the investor he'd been talking to, reached out to me directly. My work number. I almost didn't answer because I didn't recognize it. Hi, is this Raya? Yes, this is Raya. Who's calling? My name is Joelle. I've been speaking with Grayson about investment opportunities. He mentioned you run operations there. I was hoping I could ask you a few questions about capacity and growth potential. Just want to understand the operation better before I commit serious money. My heart rate picked up. This wasn't normal. Investors didn't usually call operations managers directly. Sure. What do you want to know? She asked smart questions. Not about revenue or profit, about actual operations. How many machines we ran. What our error rate was. How we handled rush orders. Whether we had room to expand physically. I answered honestly. Told her we had good systems in place. Said we could probably grow another 20 to 25% with our current setup. Maybe 40 if we added equipment and hired more people. Told her our error rate was about 3%, which was decent for our industry. That's different from what Grayson told me. My throat went dry. What did he tell you? He said you were operating at about 60% capacity with room to triple production immediately. We were at 85% capacity. Tripling production would require a completely different facility. That's not accurate, I said carefully. I appreciate your honesty. She thanked me and hung up. I sat there for 10 minutes after, staring at my phone. I'd just contradicted my boss to a potential investor. That was either the smartest or stupidest thing I'd ever done. Grayson called me into his office 2 hours later. Joelle said she spoke with you. She had questions about operations. I answered them. What did you tell her? The truth. Our actual capacity numbers. Our real error rates. His jaw tightened. Not angry yet, just tense. You made us sound small. I made us sound realistic. Realistic doesn't get people to write checks. Neither does lying when they find out later. Wrong thing to say. I knew it the second the words left my mouth. He stood up. Didn't yell. That would have been easier somehow. Instead, his voice went quiet. You need to decide if you're on this team or not. Because right now, you're not acting like it. I left his office feeling like I'd swallowed glass. But Joelle called again 3 days later. More questions. About workflow. About client retention. about which services made us the most money. I answered everything honestly again. Told her what worked, what didn't, where we struggled. You're very straightforward, she said. I don't see the point in being anything else. Grayson is lucky to have you. Except he didn't see it that way. July hit. Summer heat made the production floor brutal. We had 2 huge orders due the same week, and one of our main printers kept jamming. I was there until midnight, 3 nights straight, helping the team fix issues, rerun jobs that came out wrong. Grayson showed up once, stayed 20 minutes, left without helping, but he took credit for the delivery when he called the clients. I heard him on the phone talking about how he personally oversaw the rush job, made sure everything shipped on time. I was too tired to care at that point. Joelle called me again mid-July. I want to run something by you. Hypothetically, if you could build this business the right way, without cutting corners, what would you do? Strange question, but I answered it. Told her I'd focus on quality over quantity, invest in better equipment, hire people who actually knew the trade, build real relationships with clients instead of just chasing the biggest contracts. You've thought about this. I think about it every day. What if you could actually do it? I don't own the business. Not yet, she said it casually, like she was commenting on the weather. Then she changed subjects, asked about something else, and we hung up. I didn't know what to make of that conversation. August 9th, that's the day everything broke. Grayson asked me to meet him outside during lunch. Everyone else was in the break room. Just him and me standing in the parking lot under the sun. He was wearing sunglasses, so I couldn't see his expression clearly. I'm making some changes, he said. What kind of changes? Bringing in someone new to handle operations. Someone with fresh perspective. My entire body went numb. You're replacing me. You're not being replaced. You're being transitioned. Different role. We'll figure out the details. What details? What role? We'll discuss it later. I wanted to give you advance notice. She starts in 2 weeks. Who is she? My cousin's daughter. Just finished school. Bright kid. Eager. I couldn't breathe properly. 3 years. 3 years of fixing his problems, covering his mistakes, keeping that business running while he played investor games. This is because I wouldn't lie for you. He pulled off his sunglasses, looked at me directly. This is because you don't understand how business works. You're too rigid, too by the book. We need someone who can think bigger, bigger than lying. Watch your tone. I watched my tone. Watched my entire career get shoved aside because I told the truth. When do I meet her? My voice came out flat. Monday. I want you to train her. He walked back inside, left me standing there. I got in my car, didn't go back into the building, drove home at 1 in the afternoon, and sat on my couch trying to figure out what just happened. My phone rang at 4. Joelle. Hey. Bad time? Actually, yeah. What happened? I don't know why I told her. Maybe because she was the only person who seemed to actually value honesty. I explained the whole thing, the parking lot conversation, the replacement, the cousin's daughter. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "How would you feel about starting your own operation? With what money?" Mine. I pulled the phone away from my ear, looked at it, put it back. You're serious. Completely. I've been looking for someone to build something real with, not someone who talks big, someone who actually knows how to run a business. You're that person. I don't know anything about starting a company. You know operations. You know clients. You know quality. That's what matters. I know money. Between us, we could build something actually worth investing in. My brain couldn't process it. Hours ago, I was getting pushed out. Now someone wanted to start a business with me. I need to think about it. Take your time, but not too much time. Grayson's going to announce your replacement at the annual gathering in 2 months. I think we should announce something bigger. She hung up. I sat there until it got dark outside. Before I go further, I want to say thank you to everyone listening to this. I know there are a million other things you could be doing right now, but you're here. That means something. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I'd love to know. Now, back to what happened next. Monday came. I met Grayson's replacement. Her name was Ivy, 23 years old, smiled a lot, asked basic questions that someone with even 6 months of experience would already know. So how do we know which orders to prioritize? Based on deadline and client value. How do we determine client value? I wanted to scream. Instead, I explained everything patiently. showed her systems I'd built, processes I'd documented. 3 years of work, I was now handing over to someone who didn't earn it. Grayson checked in once. "How's training going?" "Fine," I lied. He looked pleased with himself. That night, Joelle called again. "Have you thought about it?" "I can't stop thinking about it." "Is that a yes?" I looked around my apartment. Modest place, decent furniture, nothing fancy. I'd built a stable life working for someone who just threw me away. "Yes, good. Let's meet tomorrow. We have work to do." We met at a small coffee shop the next evening. Joelle was different than I imagined. Mid-40s, wore plain clothes, no jewelry except a simple watch. She ordered black coffee and got straight to business. "I'm pulling my investment from Grayson," already told him this morning. "What did he say?" "Tried to convince me I was making a mistake. I promised better returns. I told him I'd seen enough." She slid a folder across to me. Inside were incorporation papers, a business entity already registered, my name listed as co-founder and chief operating officer, hers as co-founder and managing partner. "I did the preliminary work. We need your signature." I stared at the papers. My hands started shaking slightly. Not from fear, from something else. Maybe hope. "What are we building?" "The same business Grayson runs, but we're doing it right. Better quality, honest projections, real relationships. We'll start small, steal his best clients by being what he pretends to be. That'll take time." "I have time, and I have 47 million to invest. We'll need about 15 to start properly. Equipment, facility, staff, the rest stays in reserve for growth." 47 million. I'd never heard someone say that amount so casually. "Why me?" "You could hire someone with more experience. Someone who's actually built a company before. Because you told me the truth when lying would have been easier. That's rare. I've lost money on a dozen ventures because people told me what I wanted to hear, instead of what I needed to know. You didn't do that. That's worth more than experience." I picked up the pen, signed my name. We spent the next 6 weeks working 20-hour days, found a facility on the south side of town. Smaller than Grayson's operation, but newer. Better ventilation, good loading access. Joelle negotiated the lease while I spec'd out equipment. I called former coworkers, people who'd worked with me at Grayson's place, offered them better pay and honest leadership. 5 of them left to join us. Good people who knew the trade. We didn't announce anything publicly. No social media posts, no press releases, just quiet preparation. Grayson called me once during that time. "Heard you left." I resigned, sent the letter to your office. "Where are you working now?" "Figuring things out. If you need a reference, let me know." The audacity. Like he'd done me some favor. Like I should be grateful. "I'll keep that in mind." He hung up, probably felt magnanimous. Ivy was still at his operation, supposedly running things I used to run. I heard through former coworkers that she was struggling, orders getting mixed up, clients complaining. But Grayson kept defending her, kept insisting she just needed time to adjust. Meanwhile, I was building something real. We landed our first client in week 4, a retail chain that needed new signage for 38 locations. They'd worked with Grayson before, weren't thrilled with the experience. Slow delivery, quality issues. I promised them accurate timelines and transparent pricing, showed them our facility, our equipment, our team. They signed a 6-month contract. When their first order shipped on time with 0 errors, they extended to a year. Second client came through Joelle's network. A product manufacturer needing custom packaging. Another unhappy former Grayson client. We delivered better work for less money because we weren't padding numbers to cover inefficiency. By week 8, we had 4 clients, and revenue coming in. Not massive, but steady, real. Joelle handled the business side while I handled operations. Perfect split. She never micromanaged, never questioned my decisions, just trusted me to do what I knew how to do. It was the best working relationship I'd ever had. September arrived. Grayson's annual gathering was scheduled for the 17th. I knew about it because I'd helped plan the previous 2 years. Big event. He rented out a hotel ballroom, invited clients, investors, industry people, used it to show off, make announcements, attract new business. This year, he was planning to officially introduce Ivy as his new operations leader, make a big deal about fresh vision and bold direction. I knew because one of my former coworkers still there told me. He's been hyping it up for weeks, talks about her like she's revolutionizing everything. Meanwhile, she can't even read a production schedule properly. I didn't take pleasure in hearing that. I just felt sad that he'd rather prop up incompetence than admit he made a mistake. Joelle called me on September 10th. You should attend his gathering. Why would I do that? Because I'm attending, and I have an announcement to make. My stomach dropped. What kind of announcement? Trust me, just be there. Dress professionally. Arrive late. I'll handle everything else. Joelle, what are you planning? Something Grayson should have seen coming. She wouldn't say more. I spent the next week anxious and curious in equal measure. September 17th came. I woke up nauseous. Couldn't eat breakfast. Changed clothes 4 times trying to find something that felt right. Finally settled on simple black slacks and a gray blouse. Nothing flashy. Professional, but understated. The gathering started at 10. I arrived at 10:45. The hotel ballroom was exactly how I remembered. High ceilings, chandeliers, round seating for about 200 people. Everyone was already settled in. Grayson was at the front near a raised platform with a microphone. I slipped in through the back entrance. A few people turned to look, but most were focused forward. I found a seat in the second to last row. Grayson was mid-speech, talking about company growth, future vision, exciting changes ahead. His voice carried that same confident energy that used to impress me. Now it just sounded hollow. And speaking of changes, he continued, I want to introduce someone who's been instrumental in our evolution, my new director of operations, someone bringing innovation and fresh thinking to everything we do. He gestured to the side. Ivy walked up to join him. She looked nervous, but tried to hide it with a big smile. People clapped politely. Ivy has been transforming how we work, streamlining processes, improving efficiency. Under her leadership, we're positioned for unprecedented expansion. I knew for a fact they'd lost 2 clients in the past month, knew their delivery times had gotten worse, but he stood there selling a fantasy. More applause. Ivy said a few words about being honored and excited, generic corporate speak that meant nothing. Then I saw Joelle. She was sitting about 5 rows ahead of me, stood up slowly, head started turning. Grayson, before you continue, I need to make an announcement. His face went confused, then annoyed. Joelle, this isn't really the time. Actually, it's exactly the time. Everyone here should know. She walked toward the front. People whispered to each other, trying to figure out what was happening. As of 8 this morning, I completed acquisition of 73% of this operation. I now hold controlling ownership. The room went dead quiet. Grayson's face lost all color. What are you talking about? I purchased the shares from your 3 minority partners. They were eager to sell once I showed them the real financial situation here. The inflated projections you've been spreading, the clients you've lost, the contracts you claimed were secured, but never materialized. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. Joelle kept going. I've been documenting discrepancies for months. Every inflated number, every exaggerated claim. I gave you chances to be honest. You chose not to. People in the audience looked at each other. Some pulled out phones. As majority owner, I'm making immediate leadership changes. Effective now, you're removed from all operational control. You'll receive compensation as outlined in the partnership agreement, but your authority here is finished. Grayson found his voice. You can't do this. Not here. Not like this. I can and I am. This gathering is the perfect venue. Same place you were going to celebrate your false success. Now it's where everyone learns the truth. She turned to face the audience. This business has been operating on deception. That ends today. I'm bringing in leadership that values honesty and quality over appearance and ego. Then she looked directly at me. Raya, would you come up here? Every head in that ballroom turned to find me. My legs felt weak, but I stood up, walked down the aisle toward the front. Each step felt surreal. When I reached the platform, Joelle spoke clearly into the microphone. This is Raya. Some of you know her. She ran operations here for 3 years, did it brilliantly, was pushed out because she refused to participate in misrepresentation. She's now my business partner. We've spent the past 2 months building a competing operation, already have 4 major clients, and as of this morning, we also own this one. Grayson looked at me like I'd stabbed him. You planned this, both of you. No, I said quietly. You planned this. When you chose lies over integrity. When you pushed out the people who actually made this place work. This is just the consequence. Joelle stepped closer to Grayson. You have 30 minutes to collect your personal items. Building security has instructions to escort you out. Your access codes are already deactivated. He looked around the room, searching for support, for someone to object. No one said anything. They just watched. Ivy stood frozen beside him, clearly having no idea what to do. Grayson's jaw clenched. This is illegal. It's completely legal. I had 4 lawyers review every step. You're welcome to challenge it, but you'll lose. He stared at her, then at me, then back at the audience. Finally, he walked off the platform, down the side aisle. Ivy followed him, confused and silent. The ballroom stayed absolutely still until they disappeared through the exit. Then the whispers started, low at first, then growing louder. Joelle handed me the microphone. I know this is unexpected, I said. My voice cracked slightly, but I want to be clear about something. We're not here to destroy what was built. We're here to fix it, to make it honest, to deliver what we promise. If you've worked with this company before and had problems, I apologize. That changes now. If you're interested in continuing the relationship under new leadership, I'd love to talk. If not, I understand. I handed the microphone back to Joelle. She addressed the audience. We'll be reaching out individually over the next week. For now, thank you for being here. I know this wasn't the gathering you expected. People started standing. Some headed for the exits. Others approached us with questions. I answered what I could, explained the transition, reassured clients that existing contracts would be honored properly. It took 2 hours before the ballroom finally emptied. When it was just Joelle and me, I sat down in one of the chairs. My whole body was shaking. Did that really just happen? It really did. 47 million. You spent 47 million to acquire his business. Actually 41. Use the rest to fund ours. Good investment either way. I started laughing. Couldn't help it. The absurdity of everything. 2 months ago, I was standing in a parking lot getting fired. Now I own the company that fired me. What do we do now? I asked. Now we get to work. We have 2 facilities, doubled client base, and a lot of people depending on us to do this right. I nodded. Then let's do it right. We left the hotel together, stepped out into September sunlight. I pulled out my phone, had 17 missed calls, messages from former coworkers, from clients, from people I hadn't talked to in years. But I didn't look at any of them yet. I just stood there for a moment, breathing, processing. 3 years of my life I'd given to someone who saw me as disposable. 2 months was all it took to prove him wrong. The first week was chaos. Merging 2 operations meant duplicate everything. 2 facilities, 2 sets of equipment, 2 teams that didn't know each other, and 1 very angry former owner who was already calling his lawyer. Grayson filed an injunction trying to block the acquisition, claimed Joelle had manipulated his minority partners. His lawyer sent letters threatening litigation, said we'd stolen proprietary information, said the whole thing was a conspiracy. Joelle's legal team handled it calmly, sent back documentation showing every step was legitimate, every purchase properly executed, every contract reviewed and approved. The injunction got denied within 72 hours. But the damage to Grayson's reputation was immediate. Word spread fast in our industry. People talked. The story got bigger with each retelling. Some versions made Joelle sound ruthless. Others made me sound calculating. Neither was accurate. But perception matters more than truth. Sometimes, what actually happened was simpler. Someone lied repeatedly. Someone else noticed. Consequences followed. I spent those first days meeting with the staff from Grayson's facility. About 30 people total. Production workers, designers, client services, administrative support. Most looked worried. Change makes people nervous, especially sudden change. I gathered everyone in the main workspace on day 3. I know this is weird. I know you have questions. Here's what I can tell you. Nobody's getting fired for being associated with Grayson. You didn't do anything wrong. He did. If you want to stay and help us build something better, you have a job. If you want to leave, I understand. No hard feelings either way. A production supervisor named Carlos raised his hand. Older guy. Been there since the beginning. What about Ivy? Good question. Grayson's cousin's daughter had been MIA since the announcement. She'd shown up once, cleaned out her workspace, and left without talking to anyone. She's gone, left on her own. And you're in charge now. Joelle and I both are. She handles finances and business development. I handle operations. Same thing I did before, just with actual authority this time. A younger woman named Shanice spoke up. Are you going to change how we do things? Some things, yes. We're going to be more transparent with clients, more realistic about timelines, higher standards for quality control. But the actual work, the day-to-day production, that stays mostly the same. You all know what you're doing. I'm not going to mess with that. Carlos nodded slowly. So you're saying we stop overpromising and under-delivering? Exactly. About time. That got a few laughs. Tension eased slightly. Over the next week, I learned who actually kept Grayson's operation running. Wasn't him. Wasn't Ivy. It was people like Carlos and Shanice. People who showed up every day and fixed problems quietly while Grayson took credit publicly. I promoted 3 of them immediately. Carlos became production manager. Shanice took over quality control. A guy named Terrence, who'd been doing client services, became our account director. All 3 had been doing those jobs already without the title or pay. I just made it official. We consolidated both facilities into Grayson's old space, since it was bigger, moved our newer equipment over, sold the redundant machinery, streamlined the workflow so both teams could work together instead of competing. Joelle handled the client transition, reached out to everyone individually, explained the ownership change, offered to renegotiate any contracts that felt unfair. 4 clients left immediately, didn't want to deal with uncertainty. I didn't blame them. But 11 new ones signed on within the first month. Most were people who'd heard what happened and wanted to work with a company that valued honesty. Revenue actually increased. Grayson kept trying to cause problems. He posted on social media about betrayal and corporate theft, called former clients trying to convince them we were unstable, spread rumors that Joelle had bribed his partners. None of it worked. People in the industry knew him, knew his reputation for exaggeration. His words carried no weight anymore. By October, he'd gone quiet, stopped posting, stopped calling people. I heard through someone that he'd moved to a different city, trying to start over somewhere his reputation hadn't followed him yet. I felt bad for about 5 seconds. Then, I remembered him standing in that parking lot, telling me I didn't understand business. Ivy reached out once, sent me a message apologizing, said she'd had no idea what she was walking into. Said Grayson had told her I was leaving voluntarily to pursue other opportunities. She believed him because why wouldn't she? He was family. I wrote back telling her it wasn't her fault. She'd been used as a prop in someone else's game. Told her I hoped she found something better suited to her actual interests and skills. She never responded. I hoped that meant she'd moved on. November brought our biggest test. A national retailer approached us about a massive project. Signage and displays for 300 locations, tight deadline, high visibility, the kind of contract that could define a company. Joelle and I met with their purchasing team, 4 people who looked skeptical from the moment we walked in. We've heard the stories, their lead buyer said, about the acquisition, the drama. We need stability. Can you provide that? I didn't sugarcoat it. We've been under new ownership for 2 months. We're still integrating systems. But our production team is solid. Our quality control is better than it's ever been, and we won't promise you something we can't deliver. If the timeline is impossible, we'll tell you up front, instead of scrambling later. That's different from what most vendors say. Most vendors are trying to win contracts. We're trying to build relationships. They gave us a test order, 50 locations. Prove ourselves first, then maybe talk about the full 300. We delivered in 3 weeks. 0 errors, 2 days early. They signed for the full contract in December. That project alone brought in enough revenue to cover our entire year. More importantly, it established our reputation as reliable. Other big clients started reaching out. By year end, we doubled the size of our operation, hired 20 more people, expanded into a second building, started offering services we'd never had capacity for before. Joelle and I met on New Year's Eve to review everything. We sat in the main office after everyone else had gone home, spreadsheets and reports covering the table between us. We did 41 million in revenue, she said. Net profit of 8.3 million after all expenses. Is that good? She laughed. That's exceptional for a first year, especially considering we spent half of it in transition. What was Grayson doing annually? 26 million revenue, 3.1 profit, and he was inflating those numbers. I leaned back in my chair, tried to process it. How is this real? It's real because we built it on actual value instead of perception. Turns out that works better long term. My phone buzzed. Text from Carlos. Photo of the production floor. Everyone had stayed late to finish a rush order. They decorated the space with leftover materials, made a banner that said, "Happy New Year, from the best crew anywhere." I showed Joelle. She smiled. That's why we're successful. They believe in what we're doing. They believe because we're honest with them. Radical concept. We sat there for a while in comfortable silence, exhausted but satisfied. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd just stayed quiet? Joelle asked. If you'd gone along with Grayson's exaggerations? Sometimes. Probably would have been easier. But you'd still be working for him, making him money, while he took credit. Yeah, better this way. Definitely better this way. I thought about everything that led here. The parking lot conversation, the choice to be honest even when it cost me, the unexpected partnership that changed everything. None of it was planned. I didn't set out to take down my former boss or acquire his company. I just refused to compromise on something that mattered. Sometimes that's enough. January brought speaking invitations. Industry groups wanted to hear our story. Business schools wanted case studies. I declined most of them. Didn't feel right profiting from telling people how someone else failed. But I accepted one. A local college asked me to talk to their business students about ethics and operations management. Figured that was different. Not about revenge or drama. About doing things right. 50 students showed up. I told them the truth. Said business isn't about being the loudest or most confident. It's about being consistent and honest. Said shortcuts might work temporarily, but they always catch up eventually. One student raised his hand. But don't you have to exaggerate sometimes to compete? No. You have to be good enough that exaggeration isn't necessary. And if you're not good enough yet, you work until you are. Lying about capability doesn't create capability. It just delays the inevitable failure. Another student asked if I regretted how everything happened. I regret that it was necessary. I don't regret doing it. After the talk, a few students came up to ask more questions. One woman, maybe 22 years old, looked nervous but determined. I'm working somewhere right now where my boss does what you described. Changes numbers. Tells clients things that aren't true. I don't know what to do. Document everything. Keep records. Be prepared to walk away if necessary. And know that speaking up might cost you in the short term, but save you in the long term. That's scary. It is. But staying in a situation built on lies is scarier. She thanked me and left. I hoped she figured it out. Joelle and I kept building through the spring. Won more contracts. Hired more people. Opened a third location. Everything we built was real. Sustainable. Based on actual performance instead of promises. It wasn't perfect. We made mistakes. Lost clients sometimes. Had production issues and staff conflicts and all the normal problems businesses face. But we faced them honestly. Fixed what we could. Admitted what we couldn't. Kept moving forward. 2 years after the acquisition, we'd become one of the largest operations in our region. 5 locations, 230 employees, revenue somewhere around 90 million annually. I stopped tracking exactly. Numbers mattered, but they weren't everything. What mattered was building something people could be proud of, where work meant something beyond just profit, where honesty wasn't a liability but a foundation. I still think about that parking lot conversation sometimes. Grayson telling me I didn't understand business, pushing me aside like I was nothing. He was right about one thing. I didn't understand his version of business. The version built on image and exaggeration, and taking credit for other people's work. But I understood something he never did. Real success doesn't come from convincing people you're valuable. It comes from actually being valuable. 3 years of my life I spent making him successful. 2 months was all it took to prove I didn't need him. And now I'm building something that'll last. Something real. Something honest. That's better than any revenge could ever be. Before I finish, I want to thank you for sticking with me through this whole story. If it meant something to you, if it made you think about your own situation or gave you courage to stand up for what's right, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Leave a comment about your experience. Subscribe so you don't miss future stories. It actually helps more than you know. Thank you for listening. Really, thank you.